Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Flynn. It's great to see such an excellent turnout for our How to Secure Microsoft Teams webinar. Let me start by introducing Matt Bond from Microsoft, who will take us through the key back-end features that will help us secure and give us peace of mind around Microsoft Teams. Matt, do you want to just say a quick hi?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for Bedroq to having me here today. Looking forward to presenting some content to you guys. Thanks.
For any questions you might have, please post them in the Q&A top right-hand side of your screen. I'll make sure we'll address as many as we can in the 30 minutes we have, but most certainly follow up on all other questions via email later. Now, briefly, let me start by introducing Bedroq. Yes, we provide a full range of outsourced IT services, but we work on the premise that if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So our USP as a business is to ensure your IT strategy is aligned to your business. For example, providing the dashboards that tell you how your business of IT is supporting the actual business, be that measuring the effectiveness of your IT spend, the security of your business, or the productivity of your people. Take, for example, the productivity of your people. Identifying where, for example, the hotspots of Teams usage is. Which teams are using video most? So you can start asking what value are you getting or are they getting from Teams and what changes should be made. Now let's look at three of our customers and the various journeys that they're on. In each case, COVID-19 is accelerating the business transformation of these organizations, and I'm sure for many other organizations. For example, one of our clients has decided to close the London office, handing back the keys to the landlord, and everyone is going to work 100% from home. Another, a very traditional recruitment firm, has always conducted their business face-to-face, but now sees the value of video interviewing. But how do they ensure they still portray their business as a high-end professional organization? And finally, an international sales and marketing business is switching from email as the main comms tool to Teams, but they'll only be using email for more formal written communications to clients and partners. Typically, how we consider the written letter, say 30 years ago. Now, in all of these cases, it all links back to Microsoft Teams. And what we want to share with you today are the top tips to make sure your Teams is set up in line with best practice and is secure, giving you the peace of mind, allowing your people to go crazy and do all those great productivity things that they need to do. Matt, over to you, sir.
Thank you for that, Mark. So what I'll be doing today for you all is talking you through the Teams dashboard, the Admin Center, which is where you'll find the host of policies and settings that you can use to lock down your Teams and make sure it's secure and govern how your users will be interacting with each other as well as guests. One of the first things you may want to do when considering your Teams is the actual Teams themselves by setting some policies behind them. So by going to Teams policies and then clicking on global here, we can set a few options, such as we want our private teams intended for maybe management or certain teams in the company. Can they be discovered? Can they be requested to join? And can our users make private teams at all? What this allows us to do is gain visibility. So if we want our users to be able to make private teams depending on the team they're in, we can allow that or disallow it. And if they do, can they discover those teams by outside users? What we might also want to do is begin governing our individual users. So by clicking the Users tab, what we can gain is visibility of our complete user base within our team. So we have their usernames, their phone numbers if they have them, their locations, as well as any policies that may be assigned. If I was to click on individual user here, Alex, what I can see is some information about Alex. I can see his marketing assistant, where he's from, his phone, and his email. What I can also start to see is visibility on the policies and settings that Alex has been given. So if he has audio conferencing is enabled, as well as if that's the case, his PIN, his phone number as well. Can Alex make outbound calls? If so, is it to any destination or is it only the same country? Meaning that on an individual user basis, we can govern where can they be calling if they have business voice enabled. As well, if that's the case, we can see a call history as well as any policies he has assigned to them. Now, one of the big things we might want to start governing when it comes to our teams and our users is how they conduct meetings with each other. The first step to that is going to meetings policies themselves. So some of the settings we can set here are examples being, can we allow our users to meet now in a channel? Can they use the Outlook add-ins? Can they schedule channel meetings or even private meetings? What we can also start to control is transcription. Can they record meetings? So perhaps they're on the call with a customer or a meeting with a customer. We may not want them recording those meetings, or maybe we do, in which case we can govern and turn that off. Are we going to allow outgoing and incoming audio? It's same for video. And do we want our users to be able to share their video? And if so, what is the media bitrate? Now, the reason we might want to turn that off is if our users are in an office and maybe there's some sensitive information in their background, as an example. Another thing we might want to consider controlling is how users share their screen. So by default, users can share their entire screen. Now, the problem that might lie with that is when they're sharing their entire screen, maybe they're tabbing between windows. They might accidentally flash, say, an Excel with data of customers, or maybe something else that contains sensitive data that they don't want to be sharing to other users in a meeting. To prevent this, what we can do is make sure that they can only share a single application. So the only thing that other users in the meetings will see is the single application that is being shared instead of the entire window. We can also control, do we want our participants to be able to give or request control of another user's screen? Now, we might want this off because sometimes accidents happen and users could accidentally approve control and that could lead to other problems. We can also control if we want our users to be able to share their PowerPoints, whiteboards, and even have shared notes. And as we did the same there, we can do similar settings and policies for participants and guests interacting with each other. So do we want anonymous users to be able to start a meeting? It's probably a good idea to have that off. Do we want to automatically admit users to a meeting? Or should they wait in the lobby and await approval? With this setting here, we have it that everyone in our organisation is automatically admitted to a meeting. Anyone who isn't within our organisation has to wait in the lobby and then be approved to join. Now, what we can also define is if dial-in users who are dialing using their mobile or their phone, can they bypass that lobby? We can turn that on or we can leave it off, meaning that they're treated the exact same as the user using the Teams 10 client. Do we want to allow meet now, enable live captions, or even chat in meetings are all things that we can define and restrict. If we move on to the meeting settings, we can add an additional layer of customization to our meetings, such as, do we want anonymous users to be able to join our meeting? It might be the case we don't want that, meaning that only users can join or who we have visibility of who they actually are. If we want, we can customize our email invitations when we send out meetings. So we can add a URL to our logo, some legal information, some help information, or even a footer, such as join my meeting. In which case we can preview that and see what it would look like. Now, as we set policies for meetings there, we can do the same for if we ever host any live events. That's what you're watching right now. So if we go to global, are we going to allow our users to schedule live events at all? Live events being upwards of 10,000 users can attend. If we do allow live events, do we want it to be transcribed? If we do, who can join? Is it everyone in the organisation? Everyone? Only specific users and groups that we allow? And if so, are live events always recorded, or never recorded, or only the organiser has access to the recording? And then we can set the exact same settings, such as support URL. If we do host a live event, maybe we want to actually direct our users to our website and not the Microsoft website. And as well, do we want any third-party distribution providers to be able to actually be utilised for live events? The next thing we might want to be considering is how our users message on our platform. Are we going to allow them to have as much freedom as they like when messaging, or do we want to make sure that it's controlled to prevent any mishaps? Some settings we can set is if our users can delete sent messages, or even edit sent messages. And when it comes to read receipts, is it user controlled, or are we going to enforce read receipts, or maybe enforce them off? Can users chat at all, use GIFs, and if they can use GIFs, what's the content rating for those GIFs? If we want to make sure that there's no potentially inappropriate content shared on our platform, we can make the moderation of GIFs strict, or even turn them off altogether. We can do the exact same for memes, stickers. Do we want URL previews? Can we translate messages, immersive reader, or even send private or priority notifications with an urgent message? We can even define if our users can create voice messages. And if they're on mobile devices, can they display their favorite channels? And finally, do we want our users to be able to remove each other from group chats? If we turn that off, we restrict that to only the owners or moderators of team being able to do that. Another thing that you might want to consider when using Teams is the third-party apps that you utilize with it. We understand at Microsoft that not everyone's going to be using purely Microsoft applications. There is third-party apps that you use for your line of business on a day-to-day basis that you want to make sure work with Teams. By going to Manage Apps and then going to Organization-wide Settings, we can set some policies of allowing third-party apps. But maybe we don't want to allow every third-party app published to the store by default. We might not have verified them. We might not know everything about them, and they might be a risk. In which case we turn it off, meaning that anything that's new that's added to the store, we have to approve it. And maybe we want to disallow custom apps that our users can upload themselves. Now, when it comes to actually utilizing third-party apps, we can lock that down even further through permission policies. So by into global here, there's 3 settings here: Microsoft apps, third-party apps, and custom apps. So maybe we have a set amount of third-party apps that we use within our business for our day-to-day activities that we want to definitely make sure are allowed to be used on Teams. So by going to third-party apps, we can set some settings. So we can allow all apps with third party. We can only allow specific apps and block all others, or even block specific apps and allow all others, or flat out block all third-party apps. Use case here being, maybe we have a set amount of apps that we know we want to use. So maybe then we go allow specific apps and block all others, and we can input these apps here and search for them. Or maybe the other use case is we know there's apps that we definitely do not want our users using. We know they're potentially a risk, or maybe they're just inappropriate. In which case we can go block specific apps and allow all others. And we can set very much the same for Microsoft apps as well as any custom apps that are installed by our users. What we can also define is the setup policies themselves. So when we use Teams, on the very left, we'll see quite often activity, chat, Teams, calendar, calling, and files. Now, by default, users can change that. If they want, they can remove all of these and put their own apps in. If we want to make sure that users only see the apps that we want them using, we can make sure that allow user pinning is disabled. And then whenever we add in a third-party app that they can use, it'll be enforced to them and they will definitely see it and definitely use it in that case as well. What we can also do with Teams is we can pull some analytics and reports. You might be curious to see how your users are actually using Teams, how they're using their messaging, maybe calling, or general Teams usage overall. We can pull a number of reports, such as Teams live event usage, Teams usage in general, or even specific user activity. And we can pull a report of up to 90 days from 7 days, and all we then to do is click Run Report. It'll produce a report for us to download, so we can really get granular view into how our users are using Teams and how productive they're being while using it. What we might want to consider is governing how our external access, our external users and guest users interact. So first, if we look to external access, what we can define is, do we want to allow other Skype for Business and other Teams users to be able to communicate with our users? And the same specifically for Skype. If we want, we might want our Teams completely just for our organization, meaning that external users cannot communicate with us or get in touch. In which case I turn off both these policies, meaning that our Teams is now completely isolated. It's only our users that can interact with them. However, we can still add in a domain that we want to allow our users to communicate with. Perhaps a company who we work closely with, or maybe one of our subsidiaries if that's the case. Now, when it comes to governing our actual users, we can set very similar policies for guest access. Now, by default, guests cannot join your Teams. However, if we were to enable guest access to join our Teams, we can set some granular policies to enforce that they're actually using our Teams correctly and how we like it. So example being, can calling be enabled? And can they make private calls from guests? Can guests share IP video? Can guests share their screen or use Meet Now? And we can also set very specific messaging policies for guests. Do we want our guests to be able to edit or delete their sent messages? Maybe we turn chat off for guests altogether, meaning that there's only a one-way communication for what we send them. Can guests use GIFs, individual content rating for their GIFs, memes, stickers, or immersive reader? Are all things we can set for our guests. When it comes to the team settings, we can set some organizational-wide settings for our users, such as we allow tagging, emailing into our channels. So as you know, a Teams channel could have an email assigned to it. Do we allow that? Can we allow our users to email from Outlook, as an example, into a Teams channel? Or maybe we turn that off, meaning we want our users to physically go into their Teams client and actually send a message. What we can also do is enforce how third-party storage applications are used on our Teams site. So are we going to allow Citrix, Dropbox, Box, and Google Drive? By default, yes, but maybe we want our users only using OneDrive, in which case we can turn all of these off, meaning that for Teams at the very least, these storage applications cannot be used. Now, what we might finally want to define is, can we see the organizational tab when we're chatting with other users? What we mean by that is, can we see the organizational hierarchy with each user? So when I click on a user, can I see who their manager is, who their manager is, who their colleagues is, etc. If I want, I might just want that disabled. And very finally, one thing you might want to consider on your Teams is holidays. In the UK especially, we have quite a lot of bank holidays. If we want our users to be informed of that fact, all we have to do is add in a holiday, name the holiday, put in the date and the time, and when it ends, that means that when the user looks at their Teams calendar, you'll see when there's any bank holidays or days they shouldn't be working. Now, another consideration to take when using Teams or Microsoft 365 in general is keeping data secure and making sure the data cannot be incorrectly shared with unknown actors or users we don't want to access that data. So another thing that can be created is a data loss prevention policy. So by going here to create a policy, I can choose the type of information that I actually want to protect. As an example, I may want to protect throughout all my Office apps and Teams is UK financial data. So credit card numbers, debit card numbers, and SWIFT codes. By going for next, I can name the policy and I can choose the locations. So this will protect the data across Exchange, Teams chats, channel messages, OneDrive, and SharePoint. Meaning that if any UK financial data is detected, in this case, it will never be shared. It will be blocked. We can set some advanced settings to see really how are we informed of this fact. So for a high volume of content shared that's detected UK financial data, say a document, we can set it that it will notify that user with a policy tip. It will restrict access to the content, but it's also going to send a report to the administrator informing them that this has happened. For a low volume of content detected, we can maybe just notify the user with some policy tips and block access to that content being shared. And these are things that we can edit if we like and make them as strict as we want them to. But generally speaking, the line is, through Teams, financial data, in this case for the policy I've created, will not be leaked. It's secure through data loss prevention. All I then need to do is next. If I want to test it out first, or if I want to roll it out straight away, and then I'll just create the policy. What this means is for Teams, we can do a few things. We control how our users actually interact with each other and guests, if guests can access it all. And if so, making sure that when our users are interacting with guests, there's no potential leaks of financial data or other data forms that we might not want getting out there. So with that, that's my part done. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And I'd now like to hand back to Mark to cover off the rest of this webinar. Thank you.
Matt, that was brilliant. I've just got a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. I don't want to put you on the spot. I loved DLP because that really gives me, as a business manager, that kind of sense of security that we're not accidentally or maliciously sharing confidential information. I also love the idea of limiting the use of, or potential use of, shadow IT in terms of controlling what apps people could use, and also stopping them using Dropbox, for example, because moving to Teams and embracing that Microsoft stack, this is an opportunity to stop people using Dropbox, using ShareFile, and so on. So that's great to see. But coming on to the question, if I've got a client and I'm collaborating on a document together, and a great place would be to host it in Teams, provide that customer access to it so that we can track changes and just generally collaborate on that content. But what I want to do is limit what else they can do. I'm happy that they can see that document. I'm happy they can edit that document and come into Teams. But I don't want to see them. I don't want them to see anything else outside that file or outside that directory. And what about chat? I don't want them to see any of the chat that might be going on between me and my manager as that document is being edited between us and that customer. What kind of things can I do to support that?
So when you're sharing a document through Teams, be that through chat or maybe a channel, when you're sharing that document, you can set who can access it. So if users in an organization can access it, with anybody who has the link or anybody who sees the file. By defining that, we can also set who's actually going to be able to edit and collaborate on that document. So if we're sharing it with just people in an organization, the setting will be only people in an organization can see the file. However, if it is a case of it's guest access, we can set it that anybody with this file can access the document. And that's a setting you'll see as you share it through a chat function or a Teams channel message.
Excellent. Matt, that's great. That really is great. Okay, let's come back to sharing my screen and doing a bit of a wrap up. Good. Help if I press that button. Good, well done, Mark. Okay, we've had no questions through, so Matt's obviously done a fantastic job in terms of positioning how to secure and set up Teams in line with best practice so that you can allow your people to be as productive with that peace of mind there. So what I'd like to do is just cover off what's coming down the line, really, just to let you know. We have one further webinar left in June. That's next week, so next Tuesday. So on the 30th, we've got a win. So we're changing gears a little bit. The last two we've done is on Teams in terms of maximizing productivity last week. This week is how to set it up securely, set up Teams securely. Next week is all about Windows Virtual Desktop. Now, in many cases, organizations use Citrix, but it comes at a premium price. Now, in this event next week, next Tuesday, on the 30th, this event, we look at how you could use Windows Virtual Desktop, or WVD if you want to use acronyms, to deliver a flexible and secure hosted desktop solution to deliver that anytime, any place, any device, seamless Windows 10 experience. Because the world has changed. And yes, we're going to go back to seeing people and visiting offices, but we're not going to lose that flexibility where we're going to be working from home. That's going to be key to all of us. We're going to be using more of that kind of WeWork kind of space as well, and also visiting our head office on occasion. What we've got to do is how can we deliver those systems and that information as we've traditionally done with Citrix, but using a true multi-user Windows 10 desktop experience. So that's what next week's all about. Now, we're also going to be publishing shortly a full schedule of webinars for July and August. And some of these events that we've run through June, we're going to repeat because they were very popular. So we'll be rerunning those. But if there is any topic or product you'd like to see covered in the series, please respond to Cara when she pings you a follow-up email shortly. It would be great to get your feedback. Then it's your webinars as much as what we believe people want to see. Okay, that's it. I just want to say thanks very much for attending today. I hope you've got some good nuggets on how to set up and secure Microsoft Teams that gives you the peace of mind that you can let your people get crazy and be as productive as they want in terms of with colleagues and with the customers and with partners and so on. And you've got that peace of mind that it's secure and so on. So all the best. Have a lovely day. Look after yourself. Cheers. Bye-bye.